So first things first, you need something to paint on. And that could be something like this. I made this myself, or it could just be a piece of board rested on some books. Simple as that. I generally have my board at about a 30-degree angle here, and I can adjust it up and down when I need to. And occasionally, if I need to have it flat, I can just pull that out. And again, you can just put a book underneath it. It doesn't have to be anything like this. And you can buy purpose-made ones, but I just like making stuff. So that's quite simple, just a frame with a piece of plyboard on there. This is about 8mm thick with a nice big hinge on there, and they're just adjustable, so I can have it at different heights if I wanted to, but generally speaking it's always at the same height, about 30 degrees, and I know which direction the water's running. So we've now got our board, something to paint on. We need a palette. So this is the palette that I use for the demonstrations. It's just a cheap, probably Chinese made palette, and it's just plastic, and it's got a decent amount of wells in there. That's the view you see on the camera, that one there, but I don't use these because these are in view, but I would use them if I wasn't filming. And it's got a good number of wells here. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So I've got 16 wells here, which I use on the camera, and there's some more there as well. So more than enough that I need. And the colours I have on here are, the main colours I use are raw sienna or yellow ochre, Hansa yellow, cadmium yellow, pyrrole orange, alizarin crimson, burnt sienna, burnt umber, cerulean blue, cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, neutral tint, and that's white gouache. And occasionally I'll use lemon yellow, that's very contaminated at the moment, pyrrole red, lavender, and some kind of turquoise, and then these are just random colours that I might use occasionally, but very rarely. But these are my go-to colours here. And having a palette with a lid on, very important, because it stops your paints from drying out. We'll talk about paints in a moment. And quite often I'll have a damp tissue and I'll put in there and close the lid, which again helps keep the paints moist. But just bear in mind, if you don't paint for a long period of time, it could go mouldy if it's kept damp. But as you know, I paint pretty much daily. So that's the palette. I used to use this one, which I would still use this one, no problem at all. This is what's called a Liz Deacon palette. I'm not sure who the artist is. I just liked it because it had deep wells. To be fair, these are not particularly big, which is why I prefer that one for the demos. But I did actually just take out some of the sections, but they would be fine as they are. It's just preference really. But as you can see there, I haven't used this palette for a while, and the paints have started to dry a little bit. So another favourite palette is a John Pike Big Well palette. And you can see there, that's my bit of tissue in there. I did use this not long ago, so there's no mould in there, I don't think. But again, same sort of colours, and I use this for the larger scenes as well. But you don't need 3 palettes, one's enough, and they don't have to be expensive. So let's talk about the paints. So I generally have a lot of paints in stock. So these are full up of paints. I've got yellows, browns and oranges in there, mixed ones in there, blues, reds. So I've always got plenty of, particularly the ultramarine blue and cobalt blue, plenty of paint in stock, because you don't want to be running out of paint. And then I've got these near where I'm painting, so I can put paint out. Can't speak highly enough of the Rembrandt tube watercolours, and I always use tube, I don't use pans, and the reason for that is that for this loose style of painting it works much better. So we've got raw sienna there, and these are great value for money, 20 mils, and they're not overly expensive but very highly pigmented, good quality. Also Daniel Smith, I use some of those as well, again highly pigmented. These come in 15mm tubes, slightly smaller, but as long as it's good quality artist grade paint, just experiment and you'll find which brands you like and what you can buy where you live. So regards pencils and brushes, I generally have a 7mm lead mechanical pencil, which is 2B, And normally, again, a 2B, slightly thicker, that's 2mm lead, that one. And that's Caran d'Ache, that one. And that one is brushes. For years, I've painted with the Escoda Perla, normally about size 12 and 14 for the size papers I normally do, which is up to about 9 by 12 inches, possibly 11 by 15 inches. And the other one was the Escoda Ultima size 14. So to be fair, if you were starting off, you could probably just buy those two and a pencil and away you go. You can do everything with those pretty much. And then as I progressed, and as you progress, you may want to add some slightly different brushes. I use this Pro Art sword brush, 9A medium, great for doing branches. It's got very long hairs that then just come to a nice fine point, so it holds a lot of water. It's designed for doing pinstripes on lorries and things. So that's a great brush. I did buy a rigger the other day, but I haven't used it yet really because that one does the job. But it doesn't have to be anything special, just brush with a long, and the reason for that is it holds lots of water and comes to a nice point. I've recently tried out a Rosemary & Co. Snowdrop pointed round, very similar to the Escoda Perla. So I think Rosemary & Co. do post all around the world, and I do like their Sable Blend Series 402 brushes. That's almost becoming my go-to brush over the Escoda Perla. Again, it holds a lot of water and nice brush control. So size 10, I've got two there. And I've had that one for a long time. It's still got its point, so they wear very well. So I recently added a size 14 because you do need to have bigger brushes occasionally. So I probably will go for a bigger one than that as well. And then a synthetic brush that's quite stiff. It's useful for lifting out paint. That one, and that's the System 3 short flat Daler round. That's actually designed for acrylics. There's another sword brush there, but again, that one does the job. Escoda do a sword brush as well. It's quite a nice brush, the Escoda Versatile. Nice and long, but holds lots of water. Great for doing branches and trees and so on. And again, another Ultima, but just slightly bigger. And I got that from Rosemary & Co. I don't know what the make is or the brand of it. It's just a Chinese style brush, but it's good to experiment with different brushes. But really, that's what you need. A mop and a brush that has a point. And it doesn't have to be that. You could use the that one as well. And it doesn't have to be any of these brands, you know. As long as it's a good quality brush, you'll be fine. So that's the brushes. For years, I painted on this Langton Daler Rowley paper, and it was okay, but I noticed a huge difference going to the 100% cotton papers. It was good enough to start my watercolour journey, but I wouldn't paint on it now. And the reason for that is the 100% cotton paper is a lot more forgiving. The water travels better on the paper, and you get all the effects that I get on my paintings with this paper. So my recommendation would be to go to this paper as soon as you can. It doesn't have to be Saunders and Waterford. Archers do a good one, Bohong, but it needs to be 100% cotton paper. So look for that, not just pulp papers, which some of the cheaper ones are. But for practice, by all means, you know, paint on what you've got, but to aim to be upgrading to this paper here. This was a demo we did recently. I think I'd struggle to get all these nice effects that are going on here on the other paper. So, you know, for me, it's a must. So priority, paper first. You need a great paper, and then brushes and paints afterwards. What else we got? I normally have a absorbent sponge next to my water container. A big water container. So let's put that in place. Let's do my setup how I have it. I'm doing it on this table because I've got lots of computer stuff around my desks where I'm filming. So there we go, I have my palette that side, I have my paper which I tape down, and I just use normal masking tape. If you've got really sticky masking tape, what you can do is just do that on some material and it just takes off some of the stick. So when you pull the tape off, it doesn't tear your paper. But get in the habit of tearing it not towards your artwork, tear it away from your artwork. So if it does tear, it just tears the outside of the paper. But avoid using green masking tape or blue masking tape because it'll play around with your values. So just cream will be fine. Spray bottle, essential bit of equipment that you can just float a bit of mist onto your paper, keep areas wet. And I also normally put a little bit on my paint before I start painting to get it moist. And you'll notice my palette's all dirty here with leftover paint. I quite often use that as I start my painting to modify some of the colours. A couple of kneaded erasers. I keep them in an airtight little container because they dry out otherwise. A big roll of tissue. When I'm painting, I've always got some tissue in my hand because as I'm mixing my colours, I want less paint on the brush sometimes. I'll just dab it on there and just remove some of it if I was going to do some dry brush or something like that. So always plenty of tissue on the go. And regards doing my thumbnail sketches and things like that, I'm now using these Winsor & Newton Pro markers. They come in a set of 3 where you've got a black, a mid-tone and a lighter grey, and they're great for doing the little tonal value studies, so that's worth having. And another very important piece of equipment is a hairdryer. It doesn't have to be a pink one, and I use that all the time, as you know, in my demos to speed things up to get areas dry. You will get a slight different effect if you let things dry naturally, but again, experiment with that. Anything else? A couple of other things I very rarely use, but I do use them, and it's a fantastic tool. Maybe not for beginners, is a natural sponge, but do experiment with it occasionally. If you want to lift paint off and create misty effects and so on, it doesn't damage the paper like tissue does. If you start scrubbing at the paper with tissue, you damage the fibres and you'll ruin your painting very, very quickly. But with a natural sponge, it doesn't tend to do that. So get one of those. They come in a pack of 3 normally. And the other thing, I use my nails to scratch out quite a bit, fence posts, wires and so on. But if you don't want to damage your nails, an old credit card or library card, whatever, and you just use the corner and you can just lift out, modify the paint and so on with that. So really, that's it really. And regards the essential kit, if you're just starting watercolour, just go for a pointed brush and a mop brush, and you can use any pencil you've got laying around the house. You know, it doesn't have to be anything special. Kitchen roll, we've all got some of that at home. A simple palette, as long as it's got a lid on it that you can close to keep the paints moist. And just start with, you know, a couple of yellows, a warm and a cool yellow, a couple of reds, a couple of blues, maybe burnt sienna, and start with that and see how you get on. Then just add colours as you go. So there we go. There's my water container, a nice big one. You don't want a little tiny jar that gets muddied very, very quickly. So a big jar, and you can always have 2, one for clean and one for dirty. So that's it, I think.